This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 515 for April 27, 2017. Coming up on today's show, help, Compersion squicks me. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx, and sitting in the co-host chair today is Lusty Guy.
Happy to be here as always, and lucky to be part of the show.
We have some really exciting poly in the news. We have an interesting topic that is something I don't think we have ever addressed before. Also, some fabulous feedback on an older episode, and a really fun happy poly moment. We got a great show today.
Chock full of goodness for you.
Chock full of poly goodness. A listener named Peter emailed me a link to this Dutch bank commercial that's currently airing in the Netherlands that has not yet hit the Poly in the News blog. We scooped Poly in the News.
Can you believe that?
I know. I'm so excited.
I am too.
He said the new Dutch bank bunq launched a new commercial featuring 3 people in a bed with the caption, "Why are group accounts limited to just 2 people?" I mean, this is so cool. So I actually click the link, and we'll provide that in the show notes at polyweekly.com or on the app or wherever you listen to it. And I'll be damned. They do.
They do, and they have a black spokesman giving the monologue, as it were, through the course of the commercial. I really liked watching it, I have to say. And I sat there amazed, as I often am when I encounter Dutch culture, and go, wow, are they doing it right? Can you imagine a bank commercial in America looking anything like that?
Oh, God, no. It's totally hipster. As you say, their spokesperson is a person of color, and he's just like, kind of an average hipster dude. Nobody looking all buttoned up, wearing a suit or anything like that. I totally love that they've got rainbow flags all over it, making it super clear with every aspect of the commercial that they are fully inclusive. And with that line, why are group accounts limited to just 2 people? Can I say, guess the genders of the people in bed?
You will guess.
It's 3 women. Not MFF or FMF, but it's 3 women crawling into bed under a rainbow-colored duvet, not a white duvet with feet sticking out the bottom of it.
Yeah, it was a neat commercial. Now, I'm sure that there will be people who don't see themselves in it in some way or another. And for those people, I hear you, I see you, and I can think of a couple of classes of people right now that we're going to look at and say, but they were all this, and where was this?
Yeah, there was no trans that I could see.
There's one example. And there are others as well. So, nothing is perfect. I don't want to enthuse too much about it. And I want to make sure that that our listeners who look at it and say, but I'm not there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hey, A for effort, though.
A for effort. Give an A for effort. I really liked it. And again, I am just in awe of the Netherlands.
I just kind of feel like, okay, I think with all the poly in the news that's been coming out lately with NPR and CNN, and now this commercial that is not just addressing the GLBT demographic, but specifically the poly demographic, which I have frankly never, ever seen in any advertisement ever, I feel like I can hang up my microphone because my work here is done. I think we are officially mainstream. Are we mainstream? I think we are.
Closer. I don't think we're there yet. We're closer. I'm just remembering that advertising agency that we talked about who had published the thing saying that polyamory was going to be one of the hot advertising things this year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also remembering how, in my experience, I used to go to Amsterdam once a year, whether I needed it or not. And, I always needed it.
Oh, yeah.
Fashion starts in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
In all senses, not only clothing, but business and all kinds of other things. So maybe that advertising agency was onto something.
I may need to see if that bank is looking for a digital marketing person.
Maybe. Or you know what else I was thinking? We might create a foreign account there with you, me, and Elle.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Just to have, yeah, why not?
There you go. Our topic this week I have entitled, Help Compersion Squicks Me. For the fuller level of detail, here's a quick summary. So Lauren has been married to her husband for 24 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, huzzah.
And non-monogamous, mostly in the form of swinging, for 12 of those years.
Also huzzah.
5 years ago, she discovered that he had cheated.
Not so huzzah.
And they worked through it.
Huzzah.
Yeah. And now they date, but they tend to date separately. She has something called PISD, post-infidelity stress disorder. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I know so many people that are like, yes, oh my God, that's the thing that I'm suffering from right now.
Well, it is hard to recover after infidelity.
It really is. And she says, I've worked harder than any human being I know to try to allow him to continue to see other women alone. We've had so many horrible fights as we've tried to make this work. I've done workbooks, seen a sex therapist, hypnosis. I read everything I can get my hands on about polyamory, non-monogamy, but I've not seen this problem I'm having addressed. So Minx, my husband has always gotten turned on by my being with other men. He likes to hear what we do, and he truly embraces compersion. Me, totally turns me off. I'm grossed out thinking about what he does with, so far, the one woman he's only been with twice. He's fortunately only seen her while out of town. She lives in another state. So I have time alone to process my feelings and get over them by the time he gets home. I've done well while he was with her, even lifted my only rule of no sleepovers. And he's currently out of town and saw her again, and I'm afraid of this feeling not going away by the time he gets back. Is it a form of jealousy? It doesn't feel like it. It just feels like ew. A friend of mine likened it to going to kiss someone and suddenly seeing this great big green booger on their nose. They can clean it off, but you can't unsee it. Now, I can have compersion, she says. I am happy with him, and I know his partner, as I've met her and don't feel threatened by her. Is this merely another trigger from his cheating? It's impossible for me to discern. Since he'd never been alone with a woman prior to now, I wouldn't know if I'd felt this way had he not cheated previously. So she asked for our help with this. What do you think?
Well, you know what? I have to say, I don't know what the problem is. You have a feeling. Okay. You get to be grossed out by whatever you're grossed out about. You get to feel however you feel. What I'm seeing you writing into us about is not liking how you're feeling. Well, maybe that's where to put your lever and learn how to like what you're feeling, or at least accept what you're feeling even when you don't like what it is. Is there any behavior that's happening because of these feelings which is damaging your relationship or your interactions with your husband? You don't list any here. Does this feeling of being grossed out continue? Are you grossed out by him after he's been with someone so that you don't want to be around with him? When you look at him, you still see that booger? Or is it that while he's gone or when you think about it, you're grossed out? Is the problem that you want...
Yeah, I was unclear on that too.
Yeah, so that's, is the problem that you want to be able to enjoy being told stories? And in the same way that he likes to be told stories? Well, we don't all like the same things that everybody likes. And we're all squicked out by what we're squicked out by. You are no less a good poly because you don't want to hear the nerdy-gritty details and because envisioning your partner with somebody else doesn't make you feel good. That's okay. You can feel however you feel. It's how you behave that matters. And I'm not seeing a complaint about any behavior here.
Everything that you feel or don't feel is absolutely okay.
Absolutely.
You say that your husband has always been turned on by your being with other men. So it sounds like he might have a little bit of a voyeur in him, or maybe even a little bit of a cuckolding fantasy where he gets off on the idea that you're with somebody else and there's sort of this veil of unfaithfulness and he gets off on that. That's totally fine for him to do that. You don't have to feel that exact same way. You can be happy that your husband is happy. You can be happy that your metamour is able to see your husband and have a wonderful experience. Compersion isn't necessarily sexual. In fact, most of the time, compersion is actually defined as a non-sexual joy in seeing your partner happy with somebody else or knowing that your partner is happy with somebody else. I personally don't particularly like, I know this is weird, but except in porn, I don't really especially like to watch other people having sex. It makes me very uncomfortable. I want to turn my back and give them privacy, is my first instinct. I mean, I'm generally happy for them and I'm like, yay, but I don't really like watching other people have sex. And as a matter of fact, I don't like hearing other people have sex while I'm having sex. We tried some of those sex nights at the center when we still had a center. And it was very disruptive to hear other people in various stages of moaning and groaning and orgasm. I was like, can you all shut up so I can come? So you don't have to like or get turned on by the same things that your husband does. If you don't like hearing about the intimate details, you don't have to. I mean, presumably you're still happy for him, right?
Yeah, there's no rule that says that you have to get in there and want to have the body fluids and the stories and so on and so forth. You don't. It's perfectly okay to be squicked by the notion that your partner's with somebody else, while also not forbidding them to be with other people, respecting their agency, being forthright about STI rules and transmission concerns, doing all those good poly things while still feeling you. It's okay. You can feel you. We all feel you about something.
Exactly. And the only question remaining for me was, it was unclear when you said something about like the idea of your husband having a booger on his nose. Is that when he comes back from being out of town, is he now disgusting to you because you know he's done these things? And is that an issue? Or is it just the idea in general of hearing about those details?
Yeah, that's an important question that I have as well. Now let's take a look, now that we've said that it's okay to feel how you feel, let's take a look at what you're asking, which is, how do I change how I feel? And the root of that, we get out of cognitive behavioral therapy and desensitization therapy with fears and things, is that you change it by exposing yourself to it in very limited amounts, starting out so small so that the stimuli does not produce the response that you're wanting to train yourself out of. So if envisioning your husband doing the full-on dirty with somebody makes you feel ew, well, how does it feel if you just envisioning him having oral sex? How does it feel if you
holding
just
her
envisioning
hand?
Him? Well, that's where I was going to end, but we had to work there. So, you keep stepping back until you get to holding in a hand, to a simple embrace, to a hand on a shoulder, to some kind of thing which is in that family behavior that bothers you, but that does not bother you. Practice, expose yourself to that over and over again, and then take it up a little bit. And every time you take it up enough so that you hear the ew, take it back down so that you don't. And slowly build up in practice, and you can train yourself out of it depending. There's lots of variation. I'm not a psychologist. There's all kinds of issues that might be involved. But at root, that's what you do. You practice. You continue to expose yourself to it in very limited amounts and build up until it doesn't bother you as much.
Another question I had is that you mentioned you were a swinger, and you mentioned that this is unusual that you are dating separately, which leads me to believe you have seen your husband having sex with other people, but you were always there. So one of the things I'm unclear on is this when you were at swing clubs and whatnot, and you guys participated in swinging for 12 years, and you saw your husband having sex but in your presence, if that was okay, but now the fact that he's having sex alone without you, now that idea squicks you, there may be something to explore there. There may be something about a loss of control. Maybe you actually are afraid of something. We don't really have enough information to diagnose that, but I kind of wanted to throw that idea out there because do you see what I'm saying? Lusty Guy, I'm looking at you. Like if she has seen him having sex with other people and was okay, but now because of the infidelity and because she's not present, now it's squicking her. Those two factors might be something fairly important. So maybe it's not just desensitization. Maybe she actually has to deal with the idea of what about this particular situation makes it gross and dirty and squicky.
Well, yes, absolutely. Any introspection is potentially useful. The odds are good that even after you do that introspection, you're still going to need to practice exposure in order to reduce reaction to it. But again, having said that, if the core problem is just that you have this feeling, well, that's not necessarily a problem. Right. Yeah. And if you want to make it a problem, then the way to adjust your feelings is to practice and work your way through it.
I'm kind of wondering, I'd like to throw this out to our audience and ask if anybody else has ever been in this situation or something like it, where they were squicked by this idea or by this practice. And just, we'd love to hear stories of how you overcame it or if you didn't. Our feedback this week is from Matthew, so I'm going to ask our lovely voiced Lusty Guy to read his letter.
And I'm getting so old, I actually have to look down my nose to read it. Look at that. I'm new to Poly, and I'm now reading through the Poly canon, listening to your podcasts, 2 today during yard work, attending meetups, and trying to exercise my Poly good giving and gameness. I've encountered a possibly unintended side effect of your and then what exercise to combat jealousy. I find I'm envious and jealous when my new lover makes her own love with her husband of 10 years.
17,
thank you. Because, and then our NRE wears out. And then she may prefer his lovemaking to mine. And then she finds he satisfies her desires. And then she's done with our fling. And then I'm no longer attractive to her. And then we 3 won't live together. And then I return to post-divorce bachelorhood.
Oh.
And then I'll again be lonely, desperate, and therefore unattractive and unlovable. And then I return to the hopelessness I felt before my lover and I met. And then my son graduates from high school and moves out. And then I spiral to lonely, desperate, unattractive, and unlovable. And then I die alone with my 3 cats. Yes, that is ridiculous, but I don't learn the base cause of my anxiety. In the end, we all die alone, unknown. Rather, the lesson I learn is that since my jealousy leads logically to a ludicrous conclusion, then the jealousy itself must be ludicrous. In formal logic, the argument is called reductio ad absurdum. If the final conclusion is ridiculous, then one cannot accept the initial premise. The unintended side effect is that I don't discover why I'm jealous, but that I shouldn't feel the silly emotion in the first place. I don't think that's the purpose of your exercise.
First of all, kudos to you for doing the and then what exercise.
Indeed.
To try and do with this. I thought that was really good. That's a really good and then what. Dying alone with 3 cats? Pretty close to my dying homeless and alone. But I would argue with you that you don't know the cause of your jealousy, because what you uncovered in that exercise is what you're afraid of.
Being alone.
You were afraid that your new lover is going to basically leave you, and then you're afraid you're going to return to that post-divorce state, which is one of the darker phases in your life, it sounds like, and that you'll die alone. Those are all things that you're afraid of. Now you know that you're afraid of being abandoned, of returning to a former dark state, and you're basically afraid of living without her and what that would mean.
Or without anybody specifically.
And with your 3 cats.
That's right. Well, I suppose there's somebody, huh?
Yeah, well, depends on the cat.
My answer is kind of the same as Minx's. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, as they say. And I think that she's exactly right. You are, in fact, seeing the root cause of your fear, or your jealousy, which is a fear of being alone. And that's fine. We all have those fears of being alone. And you know what? The way to address that fear of being alone is to do what we all have to do and learn how to be alone. I know it's kind of a less than obvious thing, but nevertheless, we all have to be able to look at our partner and look at ourselves and say, I know I'm okay, and I know I can get by. Because I know I personally, and I've seen this many, many times, when somebody starts to feel that they are in fact required for someone else's happiness, when that person is dependent upon them, that can really lead to bad places. Codependency, anybody remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way to get through that fear is to overcome it and know, you know what? This relationship or these relationships are contributing to make me such a better me, and I'm so much more improved, and I'm so much better than I was when I was in that dark period, that even if they were to end, I could treat myself well enough to avoid that. I can get by alone.
I think we need to add to our and then what exercise post.
Oh, okay.
It is important that you uncovered what you're actually afraid of. And there are all kinds of things you can do with that. As Lusty Guy says, you can accept and come to terms with the fact that even if you live alone, again, at some point in your life, that you will be okay being alone. It probably won't be like that dark place before. Maybe there might be remnants of it, but it probably won't be. But there are all these techniques you can use to deal with those fears now that you know what they are. You can say them out loud. Saying them out loud automatically gives them a little bit less power over you, or in some cases a lot less power. You can confess them to your partner and say, look, I did this exercise and I realized that I'm really afraid of losing you, and I'm afraid of losing you, and that you'll like being with your husband better and then I'll be alone. And that scares me. Confiding that in your partners and having that vulnerability can deepen and strengthen your relationship. There are all kinds of things you can do now that you know what the fears are. The point of the exercise is to uncover the fears, and then after that, there's a myriad ways you can deal with it.
And discovering that level of ridiculousness is also kind of a feature. Sometimes being able to laugh at ourselves a little bit helps. Let me also say here that I'm completely cognizant of the fact that you are the expert on you. And, as much as Minx and I say, well, as we look at what you're talking about here, it seems like you're afraid of being alone.
Yeah.
If in the final analysis that doesn't sit well in your tummy and you're like, no, that's not really it. I really don't get it. This exercise isn't helping me. Well, nothing is perfect. And you're the expert on you. If it's not helping you, I believe you.
It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly Polyamorists everywhere. Our Happy Poly Moment of the Week is this. My husband Chuck and I opened up about 1.5 years ago and only recently learned to date our species. Oops, sorry. Your insight resonates with us. Dating monogamous has led to copious drama and ultimately broken hearts. A couple of months ago, we started dating Serena. She's newly identifying as poly and married to Dan. She was looking for a girlfriend, but discovered Chuck and me instead. Luckily for us, Serena immediately tossed her script and agreed to meet us both. Our first date was truly epic, and we were instantly attracted to and so enamored with one another. After hearing your desire to be part of Elle's life and to have a positive influence on hers and Lusty Guy's relationship, I realized that I want the same with my metamour. Dan has been so encouraging of Serena's relationship with Chuck and I that we were both eager to meet him. After discussing it, Serena and I decided we felt more comfortable with just me meeting Dan first, so the three of us had dinner and we got along swimmingly. Afterwards, he hugged me and kissed Serena goodnight before she and I went off to sleep together in their guest house. In the morning, while Serena and I showered together, he made us breakfast. I like the happiness just keeps building. His support for his wife and me and his feelings of compersion were palpable. I drove home that morning feeling giddy about the alone time I'd gotten with my girl and about being accepted by my metamour. Building on our success, 2 weeks later, the four of us had dinner together, and Chuck got along with Dan just as well as I had. Throughout the evening, Serena touched, kissed, and embraced all three of us, and like the naughty little sweetie she is, enjoyed doing so, especially in public. Dan proposed a toast to Serena, expressing how happy he is for her to now have 3 people who love her and that she deserves it. Dan's toast blew us away, and we felt incredibly happy and excited about the dynamic between all of us. Chuck and I drove home feeling high on life. We felt we couldn't possibly be any happier and that the night couldn't possibly have gone any better. And then it did! After we left, Dan told Serena that he's thrilled that her boyfriend and girlfriend like him, and that because we make her so happy, he thinks they should come out as poly to even more of their friends. Despite years of discussion and research before opening up, transitioning to poly was remarkably challenging for Chuck and me. Oh, hello, experience shock! But for Serena and Dan has been nearly effortless thus far. Serena's relationship with Chuck and me is her first poly experience, and although Dan has not yet had one himself, he supports Serena completely. Our new triad is off to an oh-so-happy, healthy, and sexy start. We know we are thriving in part because Serena's relationship with the three of us enriches all our lives and allows us to be better versions of ourselves. Quote Lusty Guy. Chuck and I are so grateful not only for Serena, but also for our new dear friend and metamour, Dan. So if anybody was looking for a little bit of hope, you got it right there, right?
Breakfast and showers. I mean, what's not to like?
Who's getting breakfast? Somebody making you breakfast while you shower with your girlfriend? Hell yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have 2 new poly playmates this week. Susan signed up, as well as Rachel. We so appreciate the confidence you place in us by signing up for a Playmate, which is a monthly subscription. You don't really get a lot for it, except acknowledgement here on the show and my undying appreciation. We will soon start up again the Positively Poly Pointer emails, which have lapsed for quite a while because things have been a little crazy.
Life intrudes.
Yes, indeed. But I'm hoping to get those started up again soon because that's one of the very few perks we can offer to our subscribers for whom we are so eternally grateful. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today's show. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, polyweekly@gmail.com or call 802-505-POLY or find us on Facebook, facebook.com/polyweekly or on Twitter @polyweekly or @cunningminx or on a host of other social media properties.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. I guess we can close it out by saying thanks for listening. And remember, it's not all about the sex.
Testing 1, 2. Duck fart stew.
Okay, that's totally going in the Easter egg afterwards.
Oh, you bet. No, that can't go in the Easter egg.
Come on, duck fart stew. We've got juvenile listeners who would love that.
Well, we do have juvenile listeners, I suppose, because we're juvenile hosts.
Puerile. How about that?
Puerile.
There you go.
I like puerile. It's part of the Supreme Court test on pornography. Whether or not something was created to appeal solely to puerile interests, which is, like everything in my life. Are we going to do this?
I'm just waiting for a pause long enough that I can start the actual podcast, and you haven't given me one.
I know how to shut up. People don't think I know how to show up, but I know how to shut up.